So, what was I going to talk about today? A couple of things I was going to talk about today. One of the things I was going to talk about is currently we saw Hunter Biden. So, Hunter Biden's been going on a lot of podcasts and a lot of TV shows and things like that. And of course, we all know Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's son, right? So, from that point of view, it's quite interesting seeing Hunter Biden sort of. Hi, Mary. Good to see you, Mary. I don't know if you're back in Australia or not, or you're still in Bali, but thanks for joining. Appreciate that. But yeah, so I think we're seeing a lot of stuff in America at the moment with Hunter Biden and all that sort of stuff going over there. Oh, hi, Kimmy. So Kimmy was one of the people who contacted me this morning and said, "Joe, when are you going to do your next live?" So here I am doing my live. Hi, Kimmy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate that. But yeah, so I think just so you know, today is actually a public holiday in Australia. Well, not in Australia, where I live in Brisbane. Hi, everyone. Still in Bali. Leave on Friday, unfortunately. My God, Mary, how long have you been in Bali for? That's insane. That's a long time. That's a long time to be in Bali. Thanks for doing this, Joe. That's okay. Wow. I think you must have. I think have you been there for like 2 or 3 weeks or something? It's been a while. I think you've been. It's been a while since you've been doing that. Yeah. So yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about a couple of different things, but one of them is sort of Hunter Biden. I think it's important because I think kind of 3 weeks. Wow, that's a long. That's a good holiday. That's a good holiday. Yeah. Excellent. By the beach. Yeah. I'm guessing that Bali's probably similar time frame to here at the moment. It's like a similar time. I'm not sure, but might be. But I was going to talk about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden basically is reinventing himself again. He's been going on all these podcasts and all these different shows. Um, and it's interesting because he's being interviewed by people like Candace Owens. It's 8:28 morning. Okay, so it's in Brisbane, Australia, it is it's 10:28. So you're 2 hours behind. It's still pretty close. That's still pretty close in terms of time. Yeah. Um, so with Hunter Biden sort of going on all these shows like Candace Owens and also what else? Tucker Carlson, stuff like that. It's got me thinking that there is this new sort of online world at the moment that exists where you have people who are sort of from different sides of politics generally. They're all coming together because they don't like Donald Trump, right? They're not a big fan of Donald Trump, so therefore they're coming together from different sides of politics. I personally, myself, I do not think that Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens are genuine people. I don't. I don't think they're like genuine people. So I don't know how I feel about Hunter Biden going on all these shows. I guess he's trying to go on all these shows to show everybody that he's a different person. And to be fair to Hunter, he doesn't just go on right wing shows. He also goes on a lot of left wing shows as well. So he kind of does the whole thing, right? He goes on a bunch of different shows. So from that point of view, I would say it's not too bad. But it does worry. I just think like where is this heading? And then it got me thinking about the 2028 election, right? The 2028 election, and what's going to happen there? I'm fascinated in the sense of because I don't think Donald Trump's going to be running. I think Donald Trump's going to be out of the picture, in my opinion, from that point of view, and therefore it's going to be a Democrat versus a Republican who isn't Donald Trump. And then I guess the question is from that is, well, thanks, Karen Seabook, for joining. The question then is, from that point of view, if Donald Trump isn't running, and it's now a Democrat versus a Republican, right? Um, then what is it possible that you have someone like Tucker Carlson, right? who's like it doesn't have to be Tucker Carlson, but someone with Tucker Carlson's like policies, right? Who's kind of like a populist right person. And, they're talking about how bad Israel is and stuff like that. And then you have a Democrat, and let's say the Democrat is like more of a centrist Democrat, maybe something like, a Josh Shapiro or something like that. It could be possible that at the 2028 election, right, you have a right wing conservative person who's like a populist type person, um, who is probably pivoting in terms of foreign policy to the left, right, to the left of the party, of the Democratic Party. So it could be because, again, I don't think Trump's going to be on the ballot. So at the moment, the Republican Party has the old establishment people, but also has the new establishment people as well from that point of view. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, right? But I think we have to, as like people who support, like myself from Australia, support the Democratic Party, I think we have to come to the conclusion that it's not going to be. The Democratic Party have been so focused on beating Trump for so long, um, which is a good thing. But now that I feel Trump is going to be going away to some degree, I think he's still going to have a lot of power within the Republican Party. I think Trump will still have a lot of power in the Republican Party. However, he won't. I don't think he's going to be running himself. So you might have a case where you have an anti-Trump person who's also a conservative, and I'm talking about someone like Tucker Carlson. Maybe JD Vance could run as like an in-between person. And so from that point of view, it could be an interesting election because we're I think as Democrats, we've been, or I'm an honorary Democrat, but I think as an honorary Democrat, right, as an honorary Democrat, hi Zelda, good to see you, Zelda. As an honorary Democrat, we're so used to going up against Trump, 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 right? What happens when Trump's no longer there, right? What happens when you're no longer fighting Trump, but you're fighting someone else who isn't Trump? And I don't think Democrats are really thinking about that as much as they should be, right? Because we're so focused on Democrats. And then there's a lot of Democrats who don't think he's going to leave. They think he's going to hang around. I don't believe that. I think he's going to leave. And from that point of view, is if you're so I think, in my opinion, once we get past the midterms, the Democrats now start thinking about policies, right? And not just about Trump. They've got to start thinking about policies. Why? Why should people vote for Democrats, right? Not because, again, if you don't have Trump as the opposition, then you can't just go, well, Trump, 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 this, because now you're up against JD Vance. Now you're up against Marco Rubio or Tucker Carlson, right? So you can no longer. We have to come up with a different strategy then, because you can't just say Trump, Trump, Trump. And so, in my opinion, this is a really good time for the Democrats to start talking about actual real policies, right? Not just what they're against, but what they're for, right? And I think that's the reason why you're seeing people in the DSA party, or people sort of aligned, not necessarily Abdul El Sayed. He's not a DSA member, but he kind of like he kind of hangs around that group. Been a minute, thanks Kimmy for posting that. Joe's like, been a minute, thanks Kimmy. Yeah, but yeah, so I will say that. So from my point of view, I think the Democrats really need to concentrate on forgetting about Trump for a moment. I'm talking about, but they need a real fighter. Love Abdul. Yeah. Look, I do. I don't think, I will be honest, Mary, I don't think someone like Abdul would do very well in a national election. I really don't. I think, as much as I like Abdul and I like Zora Mandani, I think you would find that in a national election they wouldn't do as well as you think they would. Substack never tells me you are live anymore. Oh wow, that's weird. That's really weird. Yeah, yeah. So just so you know, neurodivergent, just so you know, I did actually get um this morning, I did actually get a thing saying that there was something wrong with my Substack account. So when I tried to send out, when I sent out that I was doing a Substack live, it said it failed. It failed. So that's probably why. Yeah, same. I don't get the notifications. Okay, Neuron. Okay, yeah, mine's been acting up also. Yeah, look, it's been there's been a problem with Substack for a while now in terms of notifications and myself. I don't know if I've been like blacklisted or something. I don't know. Something has definitely changed. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, I can only do what I can, but I am getting a lot of people saying to me that they're not getting my notifications anymore. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I contacted Substack, and they said that there was problems with there were problems with Substack in general. That it's unpredictable. Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, I can only do what I can. I think it doesn't help that I'm in Australia. I think that makes it a bit harder because I'm in Australia as well. But yeah, but anyway, this isn't about me. This isn't about me. Well, it should be about me actually. Let's just talk about me. Let's talk about me for an hour instead. That's great. Yeah. But yeah, I think. What a sec. Hi, Joe. It's good to see and hear you again. Dem policies get more less mainstream media coverage. Past research, especially during the 2016 election between Clinton and Trump, underscored this. Hi, Joe. It's good to see you again. Yeah, Dems policies get much less mainstream media and coverage. Past research, but yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. I think that's true too. I think that's true too. I think that makes sense. Um, I think it does. Yeah. Well, look, I think the problem is at the moment is that we live in a different media landscape than back in the day between Clinton. People don't mostly watch mainstream media anymore. So trying to get to people with policies is much harder these days because so many people have tapped out. Right, so many people have tapped out of watching politics, and with like streaming services and TikTok accounts and all these people aren't really watching all the same news. People live in little bubbles, echo chambers, and things like that. So it's much harder to sort of, get people on the same page. So from that point of view, that's why I think Donald Trump did so much better in the 2024 election, because what Trump did is Trump went out and went on all these podcasts. And people back then were like, "Oh, why is Trump going on all these podcasts and doing?" Well, it was actually very smart because hi Jim July, because a lot of people on these podcasts, right? A lot of people who go to these type of podcasts, they're people who are apolitical. They might vote, but they don't watch a lot of political stuff. So the trick these days for politicians is to get in front, get eyeballs, but to get in front of people who don't follow news very closely. So going on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, it doesn't quite work the way it used to be. That's most people are not. Uh, most people who decide elections are not people who follow politics closely. Most people who decide elections are people who only follow politics on the peripherals. Uh, so that's why it's so much harder these days to get for politicians to get eyeballs, because if you go on CNN, you're just preaching to the converted, and you can't win. You can't win elections by preaching to the converted, right? You have to go to places where people are not following politics or they don't like you, which might be Fox News, it might be a right wing podcast. You have to do it. And I think the problem with Kamala Harris in 2024 is that she was going on MSNBC and CNN, and I was like, well, they're already going to vote for you, right? They're already going to vote for you, Kamala. You have to go to places where people are not they're not thinking they're going to vote for you. I think the 2024 election was the worst run campaign I have seen in modern times in regards to social media. It's like they were running a campaign like it was 15 years earlier. Yeah. And the Trump administration were running a modern campaign. And what I mean by that is they're running a social media campaign. And, Kamala was constantly on MSNBC. Like, imagine that, right? Imagine MSNBC. I mean, how many people are undecided? I heard Miss Steps was not going on. Yeah. Think about this. If you're a politician, Why would you just consistently go on shows where everybody already loves you? Like, what's the point of that? Like, if you're going on shows where people are already gonna vote for you and you're telling like, that's just insane. Why are you doing that? These people are already gonna vote for you. Go to places where there are independents and people who don't like you, right? That's how you get new voters, right? Not preaching to the converted. Now, it is much harder to do that, and you will get a lot of backlash and you might get some attacks, but that's just part of politics. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be running for president. But I do believe, I will say this, I do believe Australian flags. Look at those Aussie flags. Look at them go. Go Aussies. Go. Thank you. Thank you for those Aussie flags. I'm loving it. Um, Social media is today's hot media, like television was. Yeah. Harris also only had, yes, that's true. Her Mr. Yes, that is true. She only had a very short period of time. And by the way, I'm not blaming Kamala Harris herself because I do believe in her book, right? I do believe in her book, she said that she actually wanted to go on Joe Rogan. She said she wanted to go on, but her advisors were like, no, don't do that, right? So I think it was the people around her. And the people around her were the same people who were advising Joe Biden. And, we all know that Joe Biden was hidden. They hit Joe Biden, right? So again, and look, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who think Joe Biden, if he should have stepped aside much earlier, right? Stepped aside much earlier and given Kamala Harris more than 100 days, right? Given her more than 100 days. And then if Joe Biden had stepped aside earlier, also there wouldn't have been so much scrutiny on his decline, and he would never have done the debate. So the debate would never have happened if Joe Biden stepped aside earlier. So he would have been doing himself a favor by stepping aside earlier. Yeah. So from that point of view, I guess all I'm saying is, at least I think from what I read, I do believe, right? I do believe that the Democratic Party has changed the way they think. They no longer think the same way. They realize they made mistakes, which I think is really good. They realize that they have to go into social media, right? So from that point of view, I think there's a positive, as in the Democrats have learned their mistake. Yeah. A little bit too late, but they learned their mistake. Thank you, Aussie flags. I'm loving the Aussie flags. Yeah. Um, so Steve Irwin, messaging isn't their strength, failed going back to even, yeah. And look, this is like, you're 100% right, Nicole. You're 100% right. And I will say this, right? This is the problem with the DSA as well. I'm talking about the Democratic Socialists, right? Some of these people in 2020, they were saying things like defund the police, like get rid of prisons. These are crazy things to say, right? And these things are never going to be popular, right? And when I say this, let me say this: like, people would say defund the police, and then they go on TV and they'd say that's not really what we mean. Okay, so why say it? Why say defund the police if that's not what you mean? We have to live in. If you're a politician, right, you can't pretend. You can't try to win like you're winning a university campus. This is what I think. I think some Democrats on the very left, right, they're preaching to university young people. Like, they're preaching to, like, people doing the arts, people studying history, like, that type of people, right? That's who, let's defund they're preaching to a very, very tiny group of people. You can't win elections just with those people, right? You have to win elections in a country that has the electoral college system. You have to pick up Midwest states, mid states, where there are very conservative people in those places. So don't say stuff that you don't mean, right? And like 6 years later, they're all trying to take it back. I didn't really mean that. I regret saying that. I shouldn't have said that, and I shouldn't have said this and stuff like that. So the Democrats have to. Here's the thing: I don't understand why you can't be a populist, right? Like I say, Medicare for all, better safety nets, right? All this stuff, and don't say that you're like a democratic. Why do you have to be a socialist? You don't have to be. You don't have to be a socialist to want Medicare for all. In Australia, right? In Australia, we have Medicare. They meant defund and not abolish. Uh, there are people who do want to abolish the police, but they've learned they're pretty French. Yeah, yeah, but like even defund, um, even defund is bad. You know what I mean? Because I will say this, like this is actually true. The statistics will show that the people who hated the defunded police thing were actually working class people who lived in poor neighborhoods. They were the ones who hate those slogans the most, right? You know why? Because in those neighborhoods, that's where the police are needed the most. And so when people who are working class living in poor neighborhoods who rely on the police a lot more, right? And someone's saying, "Do you do your police have tanks?" Just curious. No, not tanks. Well, unless there's like a riot, then they might bring out a tank. Yeah. But I will just say, like, you can't say defund the police. That's just a really, really bad slogan, right? That is just a really, really bad slogan. You are never ever gonna win with those type of things. I think the overreach was the issue. Yeah, the overreach. Just say, like, why not say reform the police? Reform the police. That's a better slogan. Reform the police, not defund. Reform, right? Reform. That's a much much better slogan because when you go on TV shows and you say reform, most were saying reform, but they magnify the few extreme ones. Yeah, look, but yeah, you should just say reform and just leave it at that, right? As soon as you put any ambiguity into it, you've lost the debate. You're not wrong about the bad branding. That's what the defunding was targeting, the militarization. Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. Like I understand what you're saying, but you're now you're talking about you're having now a conversation with people who have two degrees in university and are looking at this all day. But that's not the majority of Americans. The majority of Americans are looking at that and go, wait a second, the left wants less police. That's all they're thinking. The left wants less police. They're thinking, I live in a working class area where people are breaking into cars and breaking into homes, and the left wants to defund it. No, no, no. And I'm not guessing. That's exactly what they said. It was the working class areas that actually were the most against these type of things, right? So again, you can't the Democratic Party can't be a party that panders to university people who are having like philosophical discussions about it has to be you have to be broad. Let me give you an example. In Australia, the centre left party, right, never talks like that. The centre left party in Australia is like the Democrats, but they never ever you would never hear them talk about defund. You know what they'd say? If anything, they'd say, we're going to put more money into the police, but we're going to put more money into the police for training. So they actually turn it around, right? They'll say, yeah, we're going to put more money in so police can be trained better, right? We're going to put more money into the police so they can have more cameras, right? And so they're very careful that that they don't say something that can be used against them, right? There are many ways that you can say reform the police without turning it into like you're going to defund it, right? And I think in Australia, our centre left parties are much better at doing that. The Conservatives are not hearing defund as demilitarisation of other police. Conservatives see it's totally getting rid. Yeah, yeah. Or even if they don't see it, even if they don't see it as getting rid of it, they see it as you want to have less police officers, right? And if you live in a working class area in America, you want more police officers, not less. The working class people in America, they will always poll as we don't have enough police officers. We need more police officers, right? So again, if you're someone who lives in a middle class suburb in America, and you maybe go to a nice school, a nice university, and you say defund the police, and you're like, okay, that's great for you. You live in a very nice suburb, but I live in a working class area, and there are break-ins here and this and that. Good for you. This makes the Democrats look like elites, right? You have people who were born middle class or upper middle class saying we should do this to the police, while people who are working class are like, no, 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 you're hurting us. You're hurting us. So I think, in Australia, I just think it's a branding thing, right? I think it's a marketing branding thing. And the Democrats, they have this problem of like constantly. It's like they're trying to convince, right? If if you live in historically overpoliced area, people don't want to be sentenced to death. Yeah, but Karen, Karen, that's not like a main thing. Like people be like, I think um most people in those areas, the main crimes in America that are happening is things like assault, robbery, and break-ins and car robberies. They're the things that happen like a hundred times a day, right? And that's what people think about when they're thinking about that stuff, right? They're thinking if my home's been broken into, I want a police officer to be able to go. If you live in a working class area in America, this is all the statistics show. They will say their number one complaint is not that there is too many police. Their number one complaint is how come the police take too long to get to my home? That is the number one complaint in working class areas. Why did the police take too long to get to my home? Right? That says to me they don't want less police; they want more police. So again, uh, in my home city, some funds were redirected from police to what terms street response for specifically mental health, because police were killing unarmed citizens of streets and not having. Yeah, so I agree. So I agree with that. America is a large country with different policing depending on where you are. Yeah. Now, I, Karen, yes, but looking at it from your life experience, maybe these people have privilege. Yeah. Look, a lot of these people, I will say this, and I have nothing against these people at all, but I will say this is a thing that I reason. So I want to give you an example, right? I want to give you an example. These are not people that I dislike. I like these people. But the fact of the matter is that Zoran Mandami didn't grow up in a working class area. Abdul Sayar did not grow up in a working class area. A lot of these people in the DSA, these are middle class to upper middle class people, right? Who didn't grow up in areas, right? They grew up in much less working class. Now, if you look at where Zoran Mandami and Abdul Sayar won their votes, it wasn't with working class people. It was with yeah, it is with educated people in middle class areas. The people who voted for Zoran Mandami and Abdul Saad were not working class, they were middle class people with college degrees who live in more expensive areas, right? The people who voted against Abdul Sabah were generally working class people, including black people, by the way. Black people voted against Abdul Saad and Zoran Mandami in very high numbers. And that's because these people live in neighborhoods where they don't like that sort of language. Again, I like Zoran Mandami. If I was a New Yorker, I would have voted for him. But we have to understand that that if you're this person, right, who is saying stuff like this or abolish, I'm not saying he's saying it, but some people are saying like on the DSA website. This is true. On the DSA website, it says abolish. It says our goal is to abolish the police and abolish prisons. Abolish the police and abolish. That's literally on the DSA website. I went on there and had a look, right? So again, if you're a working class person, this is not what you want. Democrats need to go back to pandering to working class people. That's how the Democrats come back again. That's how the Democrats come back. Pander to working class people, right? Pander to everyone. In Australia, a centre left government will try to get everyone's vote. Like they try to literally get everyone's vote, right? They want to get college educated. I'm definitely not DSA. I'm working families, but yeah. I'm not saying you are. Yeah, I'm not saying you are. But I'm just saying that sometimes people who criticize these things, sometimes they come through more privileged families, right? White, privileged families. They go to nice universities. They get a double degree, whatever it is, which is fine. I don't have anything against that. I went to university, but I'm just saying that the working class people, this is not how they view the world. They view the world as in police are a necessity. Yeah. The establishment Dems need to catch up to reality. Yes. Working class black and brown neighborhoods are not the same as predominantly white ones, at least as it pertains to police. Well, the black people in working class suburbs voted overwhelmingly for Stevens over Abdel El Sayed. Working class people, black working class people in New York overwhelmingly voted for Andrew Cuomo. So again, I think people don't understand is that these particular members are not getting their vote. Most of their votes are not coming from working class or poor areas. They're coming from college educated areas, young college educated people, right? That's where they're getting it from. And a lot of these people are not living in some of the worst suburbs or the most crime ridden suburbs in America. So I'm not saying they're rich or anything like that, but these people will generally have parents who are more middle class than say black people who live in more working class areas. So this is my only point is not to have a go at these people. My point is I want the Democrats to win a general election. There's a big difference between winning a primary and winning a general election. There's a big difference between those two. You can win a primary, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win a general election. And I want the Democrats the working class poor don't yet trust the agenda. That's true, yeah, because the reason is, and June and July is 100% right, yeah, because they don't like these things that they've heard these people say. Honestly, I'm not even exaggerating. When people have in these groups have said defund the police or abolish prisons, it's those areas that can't those are the areas that overwhelmingly would not vote for that area because those things affect those people the most, right? If you're a college educated person whose parents were like, middle class or upper middle class, it's very easy to say defund the police when you're not living in an area, right, that is crime ridden, right? If you live in a crime ridden area, you're not going to be defund the police. You're probably going to go for let's bring more police officers in. So I'm just telling you that's the reality of the situation on the ground. So Democrats need to come back and get that working class vote. And I think the problem with the Zohran Mandamis and the Abdul Sayed, I have a little bit of a suspicion that the midterms are not going to be great. DSA has extremely tenants, but they also show they're fighting people looking for fighters. Traditionally, Dems all the time have no agenda. Yeah, look, I agree. So what Nicole A just said is 100% right. So you see center left establishment Democrats, right? And all they do is they say, well, Abdul Sayed is hanging out with Hassan Piker or is hanging out with extremists or Zohran Mandami is an extremist, right? So instead of that, if I was a center left person, I wouldn't be going, oh, that guy's a communist. I would be offering different policies. I would be saying stuff like, yeah, I'm also for Medicare for all. I'm also for universal healthcare, but I'm not a socialist. You know what I mean? So imagine this. Imagine if you offered the same prescriptions as Abdul El Sayed and Zohran Mandami, but you said you weren't a socialist. What? That's like a win-win because you don't have to be a socialist to be Medicare for all. We have it in Australia. Australia is not a socialist country. Australia is a capitalist country, right? Europe is a capitalist country. Scandinavia is a capitalist country. And yet we all have pretty good healthcare compared to America. So you don't have to be a socialist to push for that. Also, the right and fake Dems keep messaging to create internal fights and destruction for left. Also, the right fake Dems keep messaging. Yeah. Look, social programs. Exactly. Like I'm a social democrat, right? I'm a social democrat. Social democrat is what you have in Australia, Europe, Scandinavia, and things like that. I think there are some people in America, I'm talking about young people, who actually don't know the difference between communism. They don't know the difference between communism, democratic socialism, and social democracy. I actually don't. I think there's a lot of people who don't know the difference between that. And I think a lot of people, they think they're all pretty much the same thing, but they're not, right? And I think the problem is that people, establishment Democrats or centre left or whatever you want to call them, progressives, they should fight more on policies and not trying to call those people like extremists. Even though I have to say, some of the people on that DSA thing, they've said, I don't know. I don't know. They wouldn't be my first pick. Put it that way. Yeah, they wouldn't be my first pick. I want to beat MAGA, but I desperately hope that we don't trade one type of thought. Yeah. So neurodivergent, what you just said then is exactly what I think is the problem. what you're yeah, exactly what I just think is the problem. I think that he hit it right on the spot. Yeah. Um, yes, and I'm not convinced that socialism is a problem. I'm going to ignore the Islamophobia. A lot of younger people don't care about labels. Yes, that's true. They don't, which is why MAGA continues. Centre left Dems act like Republicans and tend to support Republican policies under the guise of, you're totally right, the US is sorely undereducated on policies, economics. My knowledge is pretty basic. There are some, yeah, look, um, Timmy's now offering free classes of communism by subject. So I will say this, that I do think what Neurodivergent said is right, right? You got to, like, if you're trying to replace right wing populism or authoritarianism with left wing populism, authoritarianism, I think that's a problem, right? I think that's a problem because what are you doing here? Like, if democratic socialists want to, like, make, for example, businesses, right? Businesses under the control of the government, I think that's a problem. That's a big problem. I think socialism is such a, like, um, big term that a lot of people have. If you ask 100 people what socialism means, they'll give you 100 different answers. So whenever I hear someone say, "Oh, socialism, is this or whatever," the next question I have to ask them is, "Well, define socialism." Because a lot of people, I can tell you this. I speak to a lot of people in America online, and I will say, "What do you think is?" They'll say, "Joe, socialism is not the problem." I'll say, "What do you think socialism is?" And they'll go, What you have in Australia, what they have in Europe, what they have in Scandinavia." And I go, "That's social democracy. That's not socialism." "Oh no, it's socialism." "No, it's not." Right? In Australia, we're a capitalist country. We're a capitalist country that has safety nets. That's not socialism. That's not socialism. So I think there's a lot of confusion on what socialism is. And I think if you ask a lot of young people to define communism, I don't think they would know what it means. I think if you ask them to define what democratic socialism is, they would just, again, they would say, "Oh, that's what they have in Australia. That's what they have in, like, Sweden." And it's like, no, that's not what they have there. Um, Yes, what I was telling, yeah, them socialists again. So, I mean, again, like, communism, like, to put it in broad terms, communism is where the government pretty much owns the means of production, right? So you don't have a lot of private businesses. Democratic socialism is the difference is, I guess, in communism, it's a one state party, right? Or you call it the dictatorship or the proletariat, where, technically speaking, they say that people are in charge, but it's really the government that's in charge of it, right? So you have full, like, Stalinism type thing, right? Democratic socialism, I guess, is better because democratic socialists, they want to exist within a democratic structure, which means that you can vote them in or you can vote them out, right? So they're just another political party. As with communism, you can't vote them in or out. They're the only party, right? So I guess democratic socialism from that point of view is much better because if a democratic socialist wins an election and they stuff up the economy, you can vote them out, but you can't vote a communist out. You can't vote the Communist Party out. So I guess democratic socialists seem to be more broad in terms of the means of production. Like, for example, if you go on the Democratic Socialist website, I spend way too much time on there, but it's actually, they've got a lot of information on there. And some people will say things like, well, um, people should own certain businesses and together the government should own businesses. And then other people will say, well, actually, we should have more private businesses. So there is, like, it's a more of a, I would say, a grey area with democratic socialists. And also, there's never really been a country that's been a democratic socialist country that's really run. So yeah, so it's interesting from that point of view. But I will say, Timothy Snyder, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so I think we need to, the right is now using communism, yeah, yeah, and look, they did look. The thing is, June and July, is that actually it's not going to work. The reason why calling all left wing people communism is not going to work is because they overused it, right? And when you overuse a word, the word loses power. So if you call everyone a communist, then basically it doesn't have the same power. Oh, thank you, Neurodivergent. Thanks for coming. Thank you so much. Nice to see you again. So it doesn't have as much power, right? So Donald Trump called Barack Obama a communist. And obviously, Barack Obama is not a communist, right? Um, yeah, it obviously, is not a communist, right? So, so by overusing the word, I don't have to head, Joe. Thanks again. Thanks, Kimmy. Thanks for coming. By overusing the word, I think they've actually done themselves a lot of damage, right? They've done themselves a lot of damage by overusing the word. So I think in that sense, I don't think calling all Democrats a communist is going to work. Maybe a parliamentary system so we can have a referendum, get rid of the non-performers like in the system. Yeah, true, true. Yeah, and also like, for example, um, I think I've always said this, but they have been using the word for my lifetime, not yet dead. Yeah, yeah, but I don't think it has the same power though. That you can use. I don't think it has the same power, right? If you call Barack Obama a communist, if you call Joe Biden a communist, right? Actually, Trump actually called John McCain a communist. Like he just calls people a communist he doesn't like, right? And so what happens is people don't take the word as seriously, right? And by the way, that can also work the other way. If you call everybody on the right a Nazi, or you call everybody on the right Hitler, then it also loses its power. So it can work both ways, right? Overusing words will actually the words will just naturally lose their power. Yeah. So years and years ago, 30 years ago, if you called someone a communist, it actually meant something because it was something that not a lot of people said, right? Unless they were actual real communists. And also on the right, you called someone on the right a Nazi or Hitler, right? Again, it loses its power, right? And then it's like, well, they call everyone a Nazi. They call everyone Hitler. And again, it loses its power. So this is why I rarely use the words or Nazi or Hitler when it comes to the Trump administration because I think it oversimplifies what they are, and in a sense I don't believe Trump is Hitler. I think Trump is Viktor Orban from Hungary. If you want to look at what Trump is playbook, it's not Hitler, it's Viktor Orban from Hungary. He's basically taken the Viktor Orban playbook, which is to use the courts to go after people, to use the FCC, so use government to go after people, right? That's who Trump is. He's not Hitler. He's Viktor Orban. And so again, overplaying, and all the people also who say that he's not going to leave, he's going to leave. Bookmark this: Trump will leave in 2028. Yeah, yeah. Trump will leave in 2028. Guarantee. I will bookmark this. He's going to leave. Um, he's way too old. He doesn't want to be around anymore. Yeah, he's leaving. And because of that, I feel like the Democrats should be concentrating on fascist. No. Oh, fascist. Well, I mean, yeah, you owe me a drink. I will. I'll get you a drink. I'll buy you a drink if he doesn't leave in 2028. I will buy you a drink. I will come on here and do a big mea culpa and apologize that I was wrong. But I would say I'm 99%. Does he have a choice? He doesn't have a choice, no. But the thing is, Karen, I don't think he's going to try. I don't think he's going to try. Yeah, he doesn't have a choice, but I don't think he's going to try. If the Wall Street Journal, which is not a left wing thing, right? Remember Tucker Carlson used to say Viktor Orban was good part. Yes, exactly, Natalie. Yes, not sure he's bunking that. No, he's going. He's going, Nicole. 100%, 99.9%. He's going. So the Wall Street Journal did a story, and the Wall Street Journal, they have a lot of friends inside the Trump administration, and they're more sort of, I would call them center right, not like full MAGA. And they did a story, and basically everyone within the Trump administration, everything that's coming out is he's moving aside. There is not one person within the Trump administration who thinks he's going to be around in 2028. Not one. There is not even a there is not a plan. There is not if you know I don't know if you've noticed this, but JD Vance is now being put in front of the cameras more. Marco Rubio is being put in the camera calls, and all the conversations within the administration is who is Trump going to endorse, Marco Rubio or JD Vance? That's the conversation. There's no conversations, right? There's no conversations within their administration about Trump staying. Not one conversation has ever been made about that. All the conversation is Trump talking about who he's going to endorse. If you're talking about who you're going to endorse, you're not going to be hanging around. Yeah. 99.9%, he's not going to even try to stay. I guarantee you. And I'll tell you this, JD Vance will say, you know what JD Vance is going to say during the primaries? He's going to say, people on the left said Trump wouldn't leave. Well, he left. Do you know what I mean? So it could actually work in his favor by people saying he's not going to leave, because guess what? If we all say he's not going to leave and he leaves, well, then does that mean that we were wrong about him? Do you know what I mean? Think about it. Think about that as a strategy. And I think sometimes people don't realize is, remember at the Correspondents' Dinner, he put 2028 hat on. He's constantly trolling us. Whenever he talks about 2028, he's got a smile on his face, and everyone in the audience is laughing because they all know that he's going to leave. And that's the thing. But they're thinking we're saying he's not going to leave, and then when he does leave, no, it's not. No, it's no. But the people around, no. But he's smart enough to know it's a troll. I don't think Trump is going to leave without a fight, including a literal fight, and thus hurry up reason to get the bunker and under the border and finish. That's what it's like. He's not kidding. No, he's not leaving. He's leaving. He's leaving. I want everyone to bookmark this. Donald Trump is going to leave without a fight in 2028. I could not. Yeah, I could not be any more certain about anything. I could not be any more certain about anything. 99.9 Trump will leave. And again, this is just not my opinion. It's the opinion of everyone who's around Trump administration. He's already putting plans to endorse someone in the 2020 election. By the way, they're already putting plans for the primaries, right? So the primaries, and Trump is part of the plans, right? He's putting the plans for. He's the president, so he wouldn't have to do primaries. Right? Do you think he will leave the country? I don't. Oh, hi, Dave. Good to see you, Dave, from California. Good to see you again. No, I don't think he'll leave the country. I think he'll go to Florida. That's so good. We'll sleep better with confidence. Yeah, he's not. I honestly don't understand the people who. Honestly, I get why a lot of people think he's going to stay, but I think you're thinking about Trump 2020. And Trump 2020 is different to Trump now, because Trump has, trying to overturn an election is one thing, but trying to change the Constitution in terms of have to drop a great combo as always. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for joining. Yeah. So I honestly am incredibly confident. No, we don't want him back in Florida. Yeah. I think he'll probably go back to Florida. I don't think he'll leave the country. I think he'll stay in Florida and play. If he's still in if he's still in some health condition, play golf, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But because I do think he's going to leave. Russia, please. Yeah. Before, I think Democrats need to start thinking about who are they going to be up against, right? And what policies the Democrats want to take to the next election. Because, again, I said this earlier, right? The Democrats have been so focused, and for good reason, understandable reasons, all about how do we beat Trump. But we haven't been focused on how do we beat someone else who's not Trump. Steve Bannon has been saying there's a plan. Also, has been saying it depends on what the meaning of constitution means. Yeah, Steve Bannon. So just so you know, Steve Bannon is no longer part of the inside of the Trump administration. Steve Bannon has been cast aside from the Trump administration. He's no longer. Steve Bannon and Trump's relationship is not the same as what used to be. Maybe he will go to prison. The amount of stuff that Steve Bannon has said over the last couple of years that hasn't come true is probably about 99%. I wouldn't take Steve Bannon's word. Um, yeah, I wouldn't take Steve Bannon's word. Yeah, he's not part of the Trump administration anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I will tell you, everyone in the Trump administration who spoke to the Wall Street Journal have all said that he has zero plans to stay in power, and he's already put in place a succession plan of who he's thinking about endorsing at the 2028 election. Right? This is not the act of someone who wants to stay. Right? He hasn't asked anyone he hasn't asked like lawyers or people about how he could stay. He's not doing any of that. Right? All he's doing is trolling us. He's trolling us, and he's not going to run in 2028. 99.9%. Yeah. So I think from that point of view, Jim, I suspect whether he remains in America or not, there goes to flee, depending on what the charges he's facing. Qatar has no extradition treaty with the US. Yeah, now I will say, Jim, nice to see you, Jim. I will say that I do believe that Trump is just going to pardon himself. He's going to pardon himself and pardon everyone around him. So he'll probably be protected to some degree with a pardon. And so I don't know. Also, I will say this: I think that Democrats are not going to go after him as hard this time, and the reason I believe that is that I have heard from some Democrats in the news say that once Trump goes, we need to move on from Trump, right? Meaning we need to put a line underneath him, and if someone goes after him, it won't be the Democrats, it will be the courts, right? Someone in the courts that might go after him. So yeah, I actually don't think the Democrats are going to try to impeach him, and I think the Democrats will, like for example, they'll hold me because here's the thing: I think the Democrats are worried that um, if you go after Trump too much, you turn him into a martyr, right? Sometimes if you go after Trump, he becomes a martyr. And that's when he actually starts to rise in the polls. So the more you attack him, like through the courts, the more popularity he could become, more popular he could become. So I think the Democrats, I want to, I don't know if people say he gets a free pass. No, I will say no, because also the courts can go after him. Like, you know what I mean? Like lawyers, like states can go after Trump for certain things. I just don't think it's going to be the Democratic Party that does it. But other people can go after him, right? Other people, states and whatever, they can go. That's a mistake repeating what they did to Nixon. Yeah, I actually think that I think that's what that's a mistake. Yeah, I think ultimately he can pardon himself. So they might not be able to do much about it. I don't know. There's always like loopholes and stuff like that. But to impeach someone is very hard. I don't think Democrats are going to have the numbers to impeach someone. So yeah, again, I think Trump's problems are going to come not through, are going to come through like people suing him. I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about private citizens suing him, maybe state governments going after him, that sort of thing. I think that, but I don't know if it's going to be. I think it's probably going to be more civil than criminal. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. Yeah, but yeah, because yeah, at the end of the day, I think they're worried. So I remember Joe Biden. Do you remember the Robert Mueller report into the whole RussiaGate thing? Joe Biden said back then. Joe Biden said, I think it's a mistake to try and impeach Trump in RussiaGate because if he wins, or if we don't impeach him, he will become a martyr and his popularity will go up. And it's actually true. It's actually true because even though then them should announce that to make it clear their accountability. Yeah, I mean I think they've kind of said like I don't think anyone in the Democratic Party has talked about impeaching Trump. Like Chuck Schumer, I haven't heard Chuck Schumer say he was going to impeach Trump. You can still hold you can hold investigations and stuff, but I haven't heard anyone talk about impeaching him, like Chuck Schumer. I haven't heard any of that. Um, So yeah, so you know, we'll see what happens. But to impeach someone is very hard, and I don't think Democrats are going to have the numbers to impeach him anyway. And the thing this is what I actually agree. Don't impeach someone unless you're pretty sure you can get him, right? Because if you impeach Trump and you don't get him, you make him more popular, make the potential for courts and civil suits public. Make yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, also, maybe some people, Chuck Schumer is so ineffective. Maybe here's the other thing. Maybe some of the courts are keeping quiet about it because they don't want to. You don't. If there might be people waiting for Trump to leave politics because it's much easier to get Trump when he's not. Trump has a lot of immunity as a president, and therefore, if you're going to go after Trump, I think the smart thing to do is wait till he goes. Wait till Trump leaves office, he loses his immunity, and then you try to go after him, right? Because it's almost near impossible to get a sitting president with the amount of immunity they have. It's almost near impossible. And all you do is you turn him into a martyr. You just turn him into a martyr. He'll become more popular. Guaranteed, he'll become more popular. Every time Trump was impeached, he became more popular. Every time they went after, we showed up in court, they become more popular. Yeah. Wait till he goes, right? And he can't do the "they're coming after me" thing, right? Because he's a court. Let him go, and then let the who can never go after him will go after him because he no longer will be the president, and he won't be protected by the presidential thing. And I don't know, like when it comes to pardons, pardons are pretty good. Let him have the full sense exactly. And I actually do believe there are people waiting to get him, and they're being smart about it, and they're going, we have almost zero chance of getting him while he's president. Let's wait till he leaves, and then we'll go after it. I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Um, I think that's a smart thing to do. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I have to go, guys, but thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I really had a good time. Um, and I hope to do another one soon. Thanks, guys. Thank you, June and July. Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much, Karen F. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Karen, Natalie, yep, everyone there. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dave from California. I really appreciate you coming back and seeing you. My saying is that the only immunity from something that has to do with duties on president, Lynette. Yeah, it does, but I think you can have a bit of a broader one. But anyway, we'll see what happens when he leaves. I think the interesting thing about Trump will happen after he leaves, not while he's in power. Yeah, in my opinion. All right. See you guys.